All right, welcome everyone. Hey Lauren, how's it going today?
It's going pretty well. How are you doing?
I am excited to talk about custom inputs. Also excited that that it's Friday. Hey, James Quick is in the audience. How's it going today, James? Yeah, this is day 3 of the custom input challenge, which is a fun little event that we've been doing. I'm going to put a little banner down there at the bottom so you can take a look and see kind of what we're talking about. But this is also what we're talking about. So on Tuesday,
Was it
time is a,
Tuesday?
I
Yeah.
yeah, like brain just it's gone. On Tuesday, we launched this idea of the custom input challenge, where people can submit custom input snippets or plugins into the Sanity Exchange, sanity.io/exchange, and be entered for various prizes, whether that is community appreciation plans, Sanity t-shirts, Sanity hoodies for the grand prize, which is a hoodie, t-shirt, and sticker pack, but also for the accolades that hopefully come from the community around that. So yeah, I wanted to make sure that everyone going into the weekend had as much information as possible to make some custom inputs. And I thought, let's do some fun things in a studio and build some things this morning. Are you game for that, Lauren?
I am. Let's do it.
Awesome. So we're going to do, I had some grandiose ideas for what we could talk about today. Unfortunately, the APIs that I wanted to play with were not being super cooperative with me. The Marvel API is super limited to what you can do. So we're going to do, I think, some interesting use cases, but not anything significantly fun, just like super useful, I think. Um, So I have a studio. It is the studio that we demoed things on Tuesday. It is the standard blog studio that you get when you run Sanity init and install the blog schema. So there's nothing custom except for the things that we did on Tuesday, which was in Author, I believe. So I actually broke the custom input that we made on Tuesday, trying out some things that chat mentioned. But here's the Twitter handle that we kind of did. Here's the color swatch that Annie Pinnell put in while we were streaming the announcement of the custom input challenge. A cool little doesn't actually accept CSS keywords, but a cool color picker of various sorts to, or not color picker, but a color shower.
Yeah.
I've also potentially broken at this point. What was it? FF9999.
Yeah, that's one.
I've broken it. That's fine. That's not on Annie's code. I've been playing with this studio all week. So I thought the first thing we could do is do some live inline previews of content using just a random React package. So nothing that we have to code ourselves. And I thought it'd be interesting to do this package, which is the QR code package. And so it accepts some parameters that we can kind of bake into our schema, but it also does some cool like visual stuff. You can specify a size, a background color, a foreground color. I don't actually know what the level is, but maybe we'll play with that too. Yeah, I have no clue what that does, to be honest. But if nothing else, we can play with the size and the colors, and the value actually changes the way that the QR code looks on the fly as you're typing. So I thought that would be a cool live preview that we could go through today. I think that sounds like a decent plan.
I think so too.
So the first thing that I want to do is go ahead and use the CLI that I mentioned on Tuesday, which you can find in the blog post about the custom input challenge, and you can install globally on your computer. Super Alpha is only in my GitHub account. It's the tool that I use, but it basically is a code generator for us. So you can come here and it's the custom input CLI, install this, and then you can run the custom input command. That's going to ask us what kind of custom input we want to make. And right now in the CLI, I've only got 2 options, string and object. On Tuesday, we demoed string for a simple string input, But since we've got multiple pieces of data that need to construct our QR code, we're going to need an object this time around. So we're going to use that. It's going to ask us what directory we want to be in. So that's in our components directory, and then the name of it. So we do title case is kind of the best practice. It's not important which direction you go into, but most of the custom inputs you'll see that Sanity puts out will mostly be in title case for our components. So we'll call this QR code, not cord. And then that's going to do our actual code generation for us. It doesn't do any custom stuff. This will basically recreate everything that you need to make an object field. So in this case, this has done nothing yet other than give us a component that we can import into our schema. So we're going to add this into our post schema. We played with the author last time. Let's play with the post this time. And we're going to create a new object in this post schema. By the way, if at any point along the way you've got any questions, be sure to post them in chat. Or Lauren, if I'm doing something wacky that doesn't make any sense, let me know.
I will.
But yeah, so we need it to have a name, and the name's going to be the variable this will be in. So we'll call this QR code. It needs a title, which will be what our editors see. So we'll title it QR code data. I don't know, something like that. It needs a type. The type is going to be object. And then the object type requires a fields array. And the fields array is going to be where we're going to put the data that we need for this. So let's come over here and look at the QR code. So the QR code React generator needs a value. It needs a size, a background color, and a foreground color. It doesn't actually need all that. All it needs is the value. So maybe let's just start with value, and we'll add the others as we go. So we just need one field on this object, and it's going to be name is value. Title, actually, I think it might be nice to specify this is like a URL, because that's usually what you want your QR codes to have. Right. So the title will be URL. And the type on this will be a string. This will just be actually, we probably want it to be a URL. And that will give us some extra validation, right? Which will be helpful.
Because usually QR codes are like, posted up for maybe like an event or something. You want people to register for an event, or even like we could have done a QR code for this challenge or something.
True. Actually, that would have been a great idea. Like that way, like just scan it, and we could have had it on there. Or like it could be you're writing a blog post about like a specific like app that you want people to download, and like then you can just have it like be right on the screen, and you just kind of have it. But the nice thing is, if we use this same front end component in our blog that we use to generate this, then they'll completely sync up, and I think that's kind of an interesting thing. Yeah, definitely hindsight is 2020, James. So we have that. So let's take a look at our post. So let's go into the post schema. We saw this untitled blog post. Let's give it a title, QR code stream. And you can see we have an object, and that object is pretty much a standard Sanity object. Nothing fancy going on there. Yeah. So let's go ahead and create our custom input, or at least tie our custom input to this. And we're going to do that with the property input component on our objects schema component. And then we're going to specify the name of it, which is the name that we created in the CLI, which was QR code. I'm not going to let VS Code autocomplete for us this time. We'll do the hard work on this one. So we have a component, but we haven't actually imported it into our schema. So let's import it up here at the top of our file. Import QR code from, we're going to go up out of our schema directory and into our components directory and grab the QR code component file from there. And we're going to grab the default export, which is the QR code. So this changes nothing. Everything is exactly where it was, except for, actually, I forgot, I need to remove this from the CLI. If you look here, we got form builder test. As it turns out, when you create components that are meant to be exactly the same, it's hard to tell if they're working. So I added that in so that I would know, but that's actually testing stuff for me. So let's go delete that from our custom component. So if we look right here in our custom component, the legend for our field set, for our object, has the title from our schema, but also this concatenated string. So we know it's working. Yay. So this is really all we have to do to get that custom input working, but it's a lame custom input right now. So also I need to delete this console log from the CLI. No one wants to have logs in their production code. So yeah, so we need to actually bring in our React component. So if we look at the way our React component works, it wants us to install React QR code. So let's do that. npm install React QR code. While that's running, we need to go ahead and import it. So let's find out where that is. Import QR code from React QR code. That sounds about right. And we'll add that to the top of our file. And then we can actually use this, this component. And all we have right now is a value. So we'll just pass that value into the component. Wherever we want to go, I'm going to add it above our fields, but inside our field set, just for ease right now. And maybe we'll talk about better UI for this later on. James saying, I feel like QR codes can be super useful and I've never really used them. Here's the thing about QR codes that is a big thing for me. In the past, I felt like they were super useless. Like I was in startups in Memphis in like 2011, 2010, and like QR codes were like the next cool thing. And then they didn't go anywhere because there was no easy way to use them. But now they're available in every camera app on every smartphone. So like totally worthwhile.
It was just ahead of its time. But I thought the same thing too. I thought that they would like go the way of like Laserdisc or something. How Laserdisc pushed us here for like 2 weeks and then everyone rushed out to get them, mainly my dad.
I love like Laserdiscs were like this big, right? They were like a record in size.
Totally. But QR codes were here to stay. Who knew?
Apparently, yeah. And like, yeah, that's the thing. Like Android then built them into the camera, and then of course, like Apple 3 years later built them into the camera and then they're like, hey, look how innovative we are. But that's a rabbit hole. So yeah, so we have our QR code component, and it's going to take a value prop. And so in this case, we want to pass the value from our I'd named this terribly. Oh, the URL. So our value in our data is actually an object of data. It has keys associated with the names of the fields. So in this case, the value is going to, like if we were doing a custom string, value is just the value of that one input. But in this case, it's going to be value.url, I believe. And then it helps if you close your tags in JSX. So value.url is actually the value from the overarching field, the object field, but the URL data off of that field, if that makes sense. So we save that, and hopefully we haven't broken things, which we did. Cool. Cannot read property URL of undefined. Let's see. I bet I'm not destructuring everything I need here. No, we got value. All right. Live coding. Let's figure this out. Let's take a look and do my favorite thing and do some console log driven development. Console log value. So I commented out the QR code since I was breaking our desk structure. And now we're going to see what, because there's no URL value. We need to handle that, I think. But let's take a look at our console. And let's refresh to get the actual data coming in there. I missed it. Restoring and undefined, because I'm pretty sure there is no data here for QR code. So we do need to check against that and only display, where's our commented out QR code? There it is. So in this case, it's going to be if a value exists, we'll use that optional chaining in modern JavaScript to check to make sure that exists before we try to do anything with it. Length of undefined. I should probably pull up my my sample code over to the side and see if I've deviated. I have not. So let's comment this out and see if my assumption is valid that it's because we're missing data, and then we'll handle some conditionals around that. All right, so / sanity.io. You can see as we're logging the value. It actually is like live updating in the console, which creates a cool pyramid effect. That's awesome. So let's go ahead and have that, and then let's bring our QR code back.
I think it's going to work.
Yeah. So we'll need to do a conditional around that and make sure that if there is no value, that we don't try to display a QR code that needs it. But as we change this, let's change this maybe to twitter.com/sanity.io. You can see like on
Ooh, that's
live
so
changes.
cool.
I know, like it's it's generative art. Like that's what QR codes are, generative art. And this is also art. My console log right now. It's beautiful. Love that.
That's magical.
Right? Just totally magical. So this is cool in and of itself. We've generated the QR code. We're showing the live preview, but let's add the other fields in for the data, and let's make this change on the fly as well. So to do that, we need some additional fields, and we're going to add those. I'm on author. Shouldn't have left that open. Post. There we go. So we need a few string fields, or maybe even some number fields. So there was a size, and the size is an integer. So we need new field, name, size, title, size of QR code, and type is going to be a number. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Let's do it one at a time. And now we can look at and we can say, all right, we need size, I think was our prop on this new custom piece.
I think so.
Yeah, size. Awesome. And it goes up to, we could specify like a min and a max on that too, to make sure that it maybe has, we'll see in a second how minimum it can get. It can get super minimum. So size equals value dot size. This time this shouldn't break. This should just work. And then, yeah, I think value is the only thing that's super important. Like you have to have the value work to make that work. But now we could say our size is 5. It's not gone, but it's teeny tiny. And then 50 is a little bit bigger, and then like 250 or 200. So it's resizing on the fly. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Maybe 159. And then there were colors, right? Like that's cool. Let's change some colors around. So the custom, that's my stuff. Reorder this. There we go. All right. We have a BG color, a background color, and a foreground color. And they are strings that are a color value. So go back to post. We'll add in those fields. So we want to have a name of BG color. We'll try to keep it consistent with our React props. Title of background color. I'm capitalizing way too much today. Type will be string. And I'm not going to get fancy, but we might get fancy and incorporate Annie's color input here in a minute. But let's go ahead and have the foreground color too. Name, FG color, title, foreground color. And we could specify like the title on these doesn't matter. So if this were a bad editor experience to say foreground color, like what the heck's a foreground? Like we could change it to like QR code detail color or whatever like wording we can think of to make that better. Or we could add a description.
Yeah.
I think I misspelled that, didn't I? Description.
Just because I wouldn't, yeah, I don't know how they chose which, whether the black was the foreground or the white was foreground, etc.
Of the lines and blocks of the QR code. And since we have that already built into that CLI generated form input, we don't have to do anything special to make that work. That's all set on the field set the field builder input, which we can look at in a second. But the description, did I add a comma? Please tell me I added a comma. Yes, cool. And then the type is string. We'll save that. So you can see that description populates in a lovely way right here, making sure everyone knows what that's about. And then let's go ahead and add in those props to our QR code. And let's clean this up a little bit. I like to actually break the props onto separate lines. I don't know about anyone else, but that's my personal code style.
Yeah. It's definitely easier to read for sure when you break it up.
I start getting confused like with paired codes, like an opening and closing tag. Like those start hurting a little bit, but I think it still is a little bit easier to read.
Yes.
FG color is going to equal value.fg color, and BG color is equal to value.bg color. Now we could break these out and I could destructure the value up top to just have these, but it's a little extra typing. I think it becomes a little bit more explicit in doing that. Whatever your coding style is fine for that though. All right, so theoretically, we can add a background color. Let's be ugly, red. And a foreground color of blue. This is gonna be terrible, blue.
Oh no.
Gorgeous, awesome. So now as editors, we can look at this and we can say, we've made a terrible mistake. This is a problem. And we could say maybe that background color was a bad idea. And honestly, that foreground color is not a great idea either. But maybe we want to make sure we've got like a dark gray instead of a pure black or something like that. And we get it on the fly, immediate feedback for our editors. So I think that's a handy use case, showing inline previews for your editors. I think that can go a long way. Like we can do big panel previews. Like we could add an additional panel to this area that's like a page preview or something like that. But the QR code might not end up on a web page. It might end up in some sort of print document, or it might end up in something else. And like we don't want to do those previews, so we can show them immediately around it. So the next thing we can do one of two things going forward. This is technically a complete custom input component. We could take this and we could change the design a little bit using Sanity UI. We could also move on and do another demo for maybe generating a tweet from items on a document, from like the post title and the post author and things like that. And we might have time for both, but I just kind of wanted to open it up, Lauren, to you as well as to anyone watching in chat, what kind of direction we want to go in next.
I think maybe let's try the tweet, just because I think it would be useful. I don't know about everyone else, but what was really confusing for me when I started doing this was all the different like on change things. And so something where we could like explain that more. I don't know. It was really confusing to me.
No, totally. It does, especially with, again, like naming is such a terribly hard thing in development. Like it is, yeah, there are like 3 on changes in that. And so it's like, yeah, that can throw you off pretty fast. So let's take a look real fast at the data we have in this document, just so we can kind of, we've got a title. I'm probably going to move or remove our QR code for now. Maybe I'll just move it to the bottom. We do have an author. I don't have any authors set up yet. We've got a main image. We've got categories, body. I've added some data that's no longer existing here. This is from a previous QR code thing where I was testing things. Bye-bye, QR code. So yeah, so I think we can make a custom input that maybe has a couple buttons that lets you generate and then copy text, but also stores the end result text as a string inside of our content lake. So we get a little bit of Sanity UI, we get a little bit of recreating custom inputs, so we can talk about on change a little bit, and we get the ability to, I don't know, play with some other little React pieces along the way. I think that is an awesome idea.
Yeah.
So let's move our QR code down in our post a little bit so we don't have to stare at it too much. I want to keep it because I think it might be nice to showcase at the end as well. Cut that. And if you're new to Sanity, you might not know this, but where your schema types, where your fields are in your field array, like they do go into where they are in the UI as well. You can do some stuff to change that around with field sets and other things like that, but by default, which most people use, you can see that is now all the way down here at the bottom. So next up, let us create a new custom input. So we're going to use that same CLI again, and this time we just are going to use the string input, because the string, all we really want to do is store a string that we'll be able to copy and paste into Twitter in our data set. So we're going to run custom input. This is going to hang out in our string input, hang out in our components directory, and then we'll name this Twitter share. We already have a Twitter field, which we played with on Tuesday. All we did on that is like do a prepend to show like the Twitter URL beforehand. But this time, let me minimize this, we're going to create something completely different. So when you run that in the CLI, or in this, again, super alpha CLI, you get all of this information back. It is a custom string input at this point. So let's go ahead and add the string to our schema. So we're going to put this in our post. For ease of use for ourselves right now, we'll put it directly after the title. And this is going to be a name of tweet, I guess, and a title of text for tweet, and a type of string. And then we'll go ahead and use an input component of Twitter share. And I'm going to let VS Code do the work for me on that one. But you can see it added up here, an import to Twitter share in the same directory as our QR code. So again, just like before, we'll save this in and nothing will change other than we'll get that new field. This field works exactly the same as any other field with the Sanity Studio. But let's change that. Let me pull up, this one's a little bit more complex. I'm gonna pull up my cheat sheet over on the side for myself on this one. So the first thing that we need to do is we want to code in a couple buttons, or let's start with one button that will be used to generate our tweet. So before we do that, let's take a look at sanity.io/UI/docs. And this is our UI kit, and there happens to be some lovely buttons here with a few different styles. So we'll probably choose 2 different styles to make this work in the future. But our first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a button that will generate our click. So I'm going to grab, I don't know, this ghost button, which will kind of create this hollow button style. And we're going to bring this into our Twitter share component. So inside of our form field for now, we'll come in, and this doesn't have to be inside the form field. I just don't want to go put fragments around it and deal with all that. We're going to bring that code that we already had, that we got from Sanity UI. We're going to check our indentation. We don't have this icon, and I don't care about the icon right now. But this has some padding and some font sizes. I'm going to save it like this, but we're probably going to change a few things there. And we'll say generate tweet as our text for that button. Come back over. Remember that we haven't actually done anything for importing the button, and we're going to import that up top.
I love ghost mode.
Ghost mode. And there's our generate tweet button. It's kind of huge and chunky and probably not what we want in the long run, but it'll work for us right now. And it does nothing. No click will make anything work on this because we haven't told it what to do at all. So the next thing that we want to do is to generate, we'll do a basic string tweet. We won't grab anything else yet. We just want to populate this field down here with something when the user clicks on it. So let's create a handle click function. So const handle click equals, we're going to have this be, oh, we don't need this to be async yet. We're going to have this just be a standard anonymous arrow function. It's going to be passed an event from our button, which we're actually not going to need, so we don't need to have that. But know that that is there, and it has all the event information from the button click. And then inside of here, we need to do something. So I'm going to generate a tweet that's just going to be a random string right now. So const tweet equals, we'll use the backticks to make a string literal because we will be passing some variables into it. And we'll say this is the tweet. This won't do anything. We need to actually now patch that data into our tweet string field. We actually, like, you might, if you're coming from like a pure React background, think to yourself, like, I need to set up like some statefulness. I need to use state or set state and like kind of store that in memory. But we're playing with a real-time data store right now. So I can just use the external data store to do it in real time and don't have to worry about all of that statefulness, at least for this specific use case. So in order to actually patch that back into our data set, we do need to grab the onChange method that's passed from our props. So this is going to be the onChange function that Sanity is expecting a field to have. And we're going to actually tell it that it's tied. I'm a mouth blog for a second. Every field has an onChange method that knows what field it's attached to. So this is going to make it so that we don't have to worry about all the different, like, which field does this go into and which data piece does it need to go into? Yes, James, I did say mouth blog. I can't take credit for that. That's a Dave Rupert thing that he says occasionally on Shop Talk Show. But yeah, mouth blog. Just means like to kind of like spew out code and code thoughts without, any sort of visual. So yeah, it automatically has everything we need to patch data to our data store for this specific field that this custom input is attached to. So we can use that and we can say onChange, and that's going to take what we call a patch event. And we have a helper, and I don't know if I have the helper here. I do. Yeah. Import patch event, set and unset, which are some helper functions we have. So onChange is expecting a patch event of some sort. You can hand code these, but we have this helper function, so why not use it? And it's going to take a .from method, and that from is going to take data, and whatever that data is going to get patched back into this field. So we're going to check to see if we have a tweet, and if there is a tweet, we're going to do a ternary here. If there is a tweet, we want to set this field to that value. And then if there is not a tweet, which is just the string inside of our input field, we're going to unset. Oops. Thank you, VS Code. I typoed and you gave me all sorts of stuff. Unset, which is another method, which is going to actually reset the field to null. So instead of being a blank string or anything like that, it's going to go back to its default state in your Sanity data store. So a null state. It allows us to do that instead of having to like actually specify set null or something like that. This is just a little bit more explicit. I have an error, it looks like. All right. I've probably just forgotten something here. Failing to compile, unexpected token, handle click. I am missing a closing something somewhere. Yes, the onChange. Let's maybe make that a little bit cleaner so that we kind of know what's happening there. So onChange is accepting our patch event. Our patch event has a from method. The from method is going to look and say, all right, if a tweet exists, set this this data variable to that tweet, otherwise unset it. Let's see if we have any other errors. Code compiled successfully. Awesome. Hey, Ken Jones, welcome to the stream this morning. Mouthblog has a good mouthfeel when you say it. I agree. I maybe say it too much. So fingers crossed. I'm going to go ahead and open up console here and just make sure that if we have any errors that we catch them there. But generate tweet, nothing. There we go. Okay. So I'm not getting what I want. I also have too many things from other things. The QR code has console logs. Let's get rid of those console logs in the QR code. Console log driven development has its downsides, or so I'm told. All right, rebuilding, no errors. All right, clear out the console, generate tweet. Okay, nothing. So tweet string, patch event from, all right. Oh, VS Code is being very helpful and I'm ignoring it. I am not actually, I haven't attached handle click to anything. Handle click does nothing until we do that. So we need to add that to our button. So our button has an on-click state or an on-click prop, and we're going to pass that handle click function to it. Now, we should generate that tweet on the fly there. All right. Clear out our console, generate tweet. Hey, look at that. We do have an error, which is fun, but we have a tweet in our
Yes, we do.
component is changing an uncontrolled input type. I'm doing React poorly, I think is what this is about. It's a warning. We're going to ignore it for now, just for the sake of getting something done by the top of the hour. But we have a tweet being generated. Not great, right? Like no one wants a hard-coded tweet being generated for every blog post. That sounds problematic.
Maybe you do.
Maybe you do. I suppose I shouldn't judge. I was being judgy. I apologize. It's like when on Tuesday's stream, when Canute was like, maybe there's a use case for this. I'm like, maybe. All right. So let's figure out what we want our tweet to say. And let's code that in. So maybe it'll be like, hey, there's a new article, and maybe we'll have. So I know, because I've done this already. We actually use this in our community studio for when new contributions happen. Twitter actually can accept I don't know what they are, the escaped entities, like \n. I'm not gonna say, I have no clue what that's actually called, but it's a new line. So I'm basically telling this string to have 2 new lines after this, and that's like going to break it up into a nice like tweet looking thing. And then I'll want the title of the article, and we'll call that good and see how far we get. But now we want the article's title for this. So if we want to generate this tweet from this piece of data, we need to get all the documents data. And we don't get that by default in our custom input components. We only get the data for the for that specific input that's tied to. And that's like a performance concern. That's probably a security concern. There's a lot of reasons for that. But we can get that information should we need to. So we're going to import something. This is included at the very bottom of our custom input docs, but we do have something called with document. And it's from this part system that we have, from the part of Sanity Form Builder. And this is a method that we're going to wrap around this component that will add our document object as a prop, or as one of the props passed into this input. So I'm going to go all the way down to the export, and we're going to wrap it down here with document.
I have not seen this yet.
I used it for the first time about a month and a half ago. It is documented. It's just not like super like, woohoo, go use this. It's a little bit more on the DL.
Yeah, I was wondering how you would pull in like references to other docs, or how that all worked.
If we have time, we'll do author, and author is a reference on this document. So we still there's a little bit more that we have to do with that. We have to get the client. We could actually use the Sanity JS SDK to do that, or we can use the client that comes packaged with the studio, and that there's an import for that as well. That I need to get documented in a clear place. So now we need to, at the top of our destructuring of our props, we now have a document prop. So we'll save this, and let's take a look at what we get from that. So console log doc. Hopefully this works for us. Reloads the page. So Twitter share 23, which is where we documented that. We now have all the data associated with this document. The QR code, which is at the very bottom. If we wanted to insert the QR code, we could certainly do that into our tweet. We get the title, we get the tweet, which would be very recursive and might break stuff. I don't know. We even get the created at time, the ID, the revision, the type, all that stuff, as well as any other piece of data that is currently defined. So main image isn't defined yet. Categories aren't defined. Body's not defined. So those aren't included. They're just null values in the data store.
I see. So this is all data that's in the current document that you're in. I thought, okay, I got it now.
Again, naming, right? Like, naming is a hard thing. Yeah, it's the data that you would get out of if you came up here to inspect. So you can see none of those fields are included in that data. It's almost exactly the same as what we saw over in the console.
Got you. Okay, this makes total sense now. Okay, I'm with you.
Awesome. So now we have a ton of data to work with from this current field. So the title of the article we have in that document variable. Let's go ahead and destructure that. We'll make it like super clear. So we'll say const equal or const. We'll call it, what was it? Title comes from document. Maybe this is actually less clear. I can never. I like destructuring sometimes, and I don't like it other times. But we can come in here and use the string interpolation in JavaScript to bring that title variable's data into this string literal, into this template literal.
Got you.
So nothing has changed. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say, if you wanted to do like a sort of, silly title, like you could have like multiple string fields and like concatenate these, right? Like if you wanted to have like put a like a Mad Lib style, like put a noun here, an adjective here, and then put that all together to be the title.
Absolutely. Now on this right now, remember we're generating the tweet. So this is the tweet string. Doing the title would mean that we want to patch back into the title, and that's possible. It's honestly a lot harder. There's a lot of things to think about.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we could say like title plus, let's put a space. Lauren is awesome. So do that. Say that in, and now we'll generate the tweet, new article, and we don't see anything here because those new lines aren't actually displayed. And then QR code stream, which is our title. Lauren's awesome.
Yeah.
So all of that is kind of generating, right? As long as our data, as long as our content like knows, then it's obviously true. Obviously. So the other thing would be, and I'm gonna cheat, and we're gonna go a little bit faster on this. We can make this copy to a clipboard as well, and so we could generate a button that would handle our copy as well. Or do we want to do that, or do we want to destructure the authors and get an author in here?
So that if you pull in authors, is that similar to how you would do a reference when you reference? Yes. Okay, let's do that. Do we have time?
We absolutely do. Thanks for tuning in, James. We'll see you next time around. So the thing we're going to do is we could go and install Sanity at Sanity/client, right? We could npm install that. It exists, but we already have a client built into the studio. It is part of the part system. I'm going to copy and paste this. And so import client from part Sanity base client. And this is one of those hidden features that, again, documentation coming to a documentation site near you soon. But it does exist. Again, you could also use the at Sanity/client to do the same thing. Now, the next thing we need to do is use that client. And we need to set some data first because we don't have any authors. And in fact, we don't have any authors, period, in this. So let's go ahead and finish our work on this. This is an unpublished author. So we'll make it me.
Oh, I wanted it to be me.
Generate the slug. We'll leave the image alone right now. Leave bio alone. We don't need any of that. We'll publish. What's that?
I said, yay.
And we'll come back in, and we want to populate that in here. So we'll say what we need is new lines, probably. Oops, that's inside that. This is starting to get like a long line, but we'll be strong. /new line, and we'll say by author name, right? So the first thing we need to do is get our author data. So our author data exists, but it doesn't exist as we might expect it to. And if you've been watching Lauren and Cap's Grok streams, you'll know that a reference is a little bit different from your standard data. Let's take a look at what that looks like in the inspect. So the author is this gibberish with a type of reference. This reference, this ref data here, corresponds to the ID of the document that contains all of Lauren's data. So we need to, what we call, dereference that. But first we have to get that data. So we need to come in and we need to find, and the nice thing is, for what I did for our community studio, there's an array of authors, which makes it harder. In this case, we only have one author, so that's way more fun to deal with. So inside of our handle click, let's get that author information. So const author data equals document dot author. Nope, that's not right. Document dot author. Cool. Console log driven development. I like to see what I'm working with before I try to use it. Author data. So close that out, rebuild, and generate tweet again. And this time you can see we have that ref. It's of a type reference. The string that we wanted is there, but we're going to replace that. So the next thing we need to do is actually grab the information off of Lauren's author document. And to do that, if you're familiar with the way that the Sanity.js client works, this is the exact same Sanity.js client. So we'll actually say client dot, and we're going to fetch some data. And we're going to pass the fetch method a grok query. So in this case, we want to look in our content lake and find all documents that have an ID that equals, referencing my cheat sheet to make sure that we move quickly on it, that references a specific value we're going to pass our parameter object. So we're going to call this author. And then the second argument in our fetch method is an object of data that we can pass into this. So I want to pass our object an author value, and that author value needs to be the ref value from our author data. Author data dot ref, which is the ID of a document in the data store.
Right. It's like a foreign key.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Now, I'm being weird. I didn't set that data to anything. So we need a const. I guess this should actually probably be author ID, right? Author ID. Yeah. And then this will be author data. Make sure that we pass this over here. All right. And then let us. So at this point, we can do this, and then promises are happening and all sorts of stuff. Let's make this an async function. We can do that just by putting async before our anonymous function here. And then for our author data, we're going to await that. And that's going to pause our JavaScript execution here and then make sure that we have that data before we try to do anything else with it. I'm not the best async programmer in the world. There are probably better performance ways of doing this, but we'll go with it. So our author data, when we generate tweet, is an array, because everything that comes back from our content lake is going to be an array of one item. That one item is all of our data for Lauren. Name, Lauren, slug, Lauren. This was from when I was trying to make the Marvel API work, and I left some data behind. Whoops. The Twitter, which was something that we played with on Tuesday. So yeah, so we could say in this data, we could also do a projection, but we'll save that for another time. We'll just use all the data right now. Lauren is awesome, and we'll pass here by author data dot name. File, generate tweet, undefined. What have I done? Oh, I know what I've done. It's an array. We need to get back only the first item of the array. We'll do that in our grok up here just by passing the 0 index into a chained square bracket here. And that's going to return back the first item in the array of authors that match Lauren's author ID. So now we'll push the button by Lauren. As it turns out, we apparently have a Twitter handle in there for Lauren, and it's sanity_io right now, but it could be changed in the data. So we could also come in and let me see what that data looked like again. Yeah, so we've got this Twitter ID. ID, right? And that came from our tutorial on Tuesday where we talked about the custom input, and we'll just use that data, right? That's super handy. So we'll actually say, actually, let's say if, we'll say Twitter, I think. So if author data.twitter, then we'll say, can I make this work? At, ooh, I'm getting into ternaries that I'm probably not going to do right here. Yeah, let's just have it be Twitter. I really want it to be at, but we'll just have it be the Twitter. That's fine. Author data.twitter, and then else author data.name. I think name is a required field on the other document, so that's fine. So now when we generate tweet, we get by Sanity.io. And obviously we could go deeper into like conditionals and all that good stuff to have that be an at that would be accepted. I want to do one more thing, because right now if I were to copy this and like paste it somewhere, it would just be, we'll open up Twitter. This is my personal Twitter. So like there's no new lines, which is not what we want. So we could actually display this in a code block. And again, we can also make a copy to clipboard functionality as well, which is actually how things work inside of our Community Studio for this. But I'm going to grab this code component from Sanity UI. And we'll just have it be this. And we'll put it directly beneath our text input. We can actually have it replace this because we're not actually doing anything with this text input. This text input doesn't patch any data. The only thing that patches the data is that button. So maybe we'll comment that out for the moment. And so we want to use code, and we want the code to display our value that we get from our props. And size 4 is fine for the moment. We need to import this code from Sanity UI. You can see our text input has gone gray because we're not using it anymore. And let's see how good or bad I did and see if that just works. Okay, so now you can see that's actually populating those lines. It's a little big. So maybe let's bring that all the way down to 0, because we don't actually care to read it. We just want to copy it. And then we can do other things around this too. Like I might actually want the button to go beneath it. And then let's make the button smaller too. We'll just have it be of a font size of 1 across the board. The padding will be 2 across the board. And I'll make, oh no, what did I do? That Z index is fun. I've reloaded the page too many times. All right. Oh, I left a square bracket accidentally. There it is. Cool. So now it's above. I can copy this. All of this does go in to what looks like a tweet. None of the /ns are there. We do have these spaces, which that's just me forgetting that would actually go into that. So instead of the space after our new lines, they have to be actually butted up against the next thing. And I can throw those spaces. Every single space will display. Anything more than that gets removed from the final. And then if we wanted a space, I think it'd be like \S. So if we wanted like 5 spaces, we could do that. So yeah, so we save that, and then we get a custom input.
Interesting. I never would have thought that, but I guess because I always like, oh, you have to concatenate the space in.
Yeah, it only works for 1. But yeah, you could, and I think it's \S. I don't know. I always have to look up all those values. So yeah, so now we have this thing. No one can edit it, which is nice. Like the input for editing is gone because we don't really want that since this is being like programmatically generated. We could do other things, like we could put this inside of a card. I think that's like, let me find what I did over here so we can make it look better, because it's driving, like I have to make it look better. Because former designer, I have to do these things. I'm sorry. So we're going to wrap.
Can you do the code as card in this case, or no? Or you just change it to card?
So you can, but the reason I'm going to wrap it in the card is something I was going to gloss over, but it makes perfect sense. I want this to be horizontally scrollable. So the card will have this, and we don't want our code to be horizontally scrollable. We want that to be like, it's a distinction. Like it might work. I'd be curious to try it. But I want this. Oh no, card is not defined. How many times am I going to do that? A lot.
Oh yeah, you gotta import it up there.
So now it's here. Like let's make the size of our code like huge so we can see it scroll. Code stream with a really, really, really long title. So now it kind of scrolls in here, but it's still all copy and pastable. And again, we could have in the code that we use in the community studio, we have a second button. There's a generate button, and then there's a copy to clipboard button. And the copy to clipboard just stores it directly in, which I've got 3 minutes. Let's do it. I can do it. Because I have all the code saved already. I'm not going to do a great job of explaining, but just for the fun, there's a React package called React Copy to Clipboard. So npm install that, and then it comes with this copy to clipboard component, which we will add down after our first button, and it's going to be copy to clipboard. The text for that we want to be our value, and then we pass it an on copy function, which will be an anonymous function. You could break this out and have it be somewhere else too, and that'd be fine. Oh, actually, let's leave that for now and show that this does in fact copy. Oh no, didn't actually import it, did I? Or didn't close my copy to clipboard component. There we go. Oh no, type of undefined. What? This is what happens when I'm like, let's get like, something new at the end.
Got too fancy.
Yep. That's just me in a nutshell. Type of undefined. Twitter share, unexpected token. Oh, that's super old. So let's find the stack trace on this. That's the warning that we were getting earlier. Is this in my component? Unfortunately not. All right. Button. So let's make sure that it is our new feature. It is, in fact, our new feature. Boo. I don't think we're going to make it. I don't think we're going to make it in the next 2 minutes.
No, that's okay.
Now I'm just sad.
No, don't be sad. It's okay. It's better to go fancy and fail than to never go fancy.
Go big or go home, right?
Yes.
But I see where I made my mistake. The copy to clipboard component isn't a self-closing component. It needs something inside. So we'll use button again. Let me just copy again from outside what you can see, and know that we're just going to use a button. The button is going to have ghost style, padding, text of copy tweet. And yes, I would need to massage this a little bit, but copy tweet theoretically has copied this tweet. Let's generate, copy, and paste. So there it is. Now, the one extra piece of fancy that I'm going to bring in real fast is I don't know that, like, I didn't give my user, my editor, any indication that copy worked, right? Like I clicked that, and like, how do I know that that's a thing? As it turns out, this component has an onCopy method, onCopy, or an onCopy prop, which we can pass a function. And then what we can do is we can use the standard Studio toasts, which are the little pop-up messages you get at the bottom, to when this happens, we're actually going to push a new message into our toast. All this is available to learn about at sanity.io/UI/docs. So toast push, and that's going to push into a toast array, because you can have like 5 different messages there. The status is an info box. It's not a warning. And then the title is what's going to be displayed, and that's that the tweet has been copied. And so we need to also import that Let me find that from Sanity UI. And again, I'm going fast, I know. Use toast. Oh, use toast. What am I doing over here? Where is that supposed to be? Toast push. Use toast. Oh, okay. Yeah, we have to actually define that out. So our const toast equals use toast. All right. Theoretically, see those are the toasts down there, like connected to dev server and all that. So copy tweet, tweet copied, tweet copied, tweet copied.
Is it maybe like, did it work? Yeah, you did it. And
Exactly.
then if you wanted it to be green, you would use like success.
Yeah, I'd have to look. All that's kind of documented too. That we can go. The toasts all have different types of statuses. Use toast. But yeah, there's success, there's info, there's warning, stuff like that.
Okay, so like the basic,
yeah,
regular statuses you would think of. Okay.
Yep, and then let's just make sure that this did actually work. We'll just put something there. Generate.
This is really cool.
I dig it. Like I think it's a fun application. So the T has been entered. Copy tweet, tweet copied. Come over to Twitter, paste. It's it twice. There's the T. So yeah, our copy and paste did actually work.
Awesome.
So I hope that either clarified or gave some ideas around things that people could do with custom inputs. We are still running our custom input challenge through next Thursday, where we'll do our finale stream, where you can get Sanity swag like t-shirts. The grand prize is going to be a hoodie, t-shirt, stickers. And then also, I think if you make a custom input that helps somebody, like that's just reward in and of itself, which I enjoy. So yeah, if you want to even like take the QR code that has not been shared, like I haven't shared that, recreate it from the stream and post it, and let us know if you make any cool changes or make it more error proof or anything like that. Be super interested to see it in the community. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what people make.
Yeah, I think there have already been a few great submissions, things that I hadn't thought about, and we're also putting in Simeon, who is a former community member, now one of our solutions engineers, made a horrible custom input where you can enter content, but you have to use Google reCAPTCHA, and it wipes the reCAPTCHA status every single time you publish, and so you have to enter it every single time. And then Canute actually shared this morning, not with the community, he's going to share it soon, where there's actually a mood. It can't use what I'm streaming with, but let's come on, live demo. So it's like trying to judge sentiment from my mood. And it's like base 64 encoding the photo, and then provides like all this data, like neutral is this, happy, sad, disgusted. Oh, disgusted has a decimal place, e to the -7th power. Surprised was the biggest one. So he actually set all these like opacities based on that. So I'd be like, there we go. So cool stuff. You could obviously use your assets to do this, but doing it on camera is a lot of fun. I hurt my cheeks a little bit trying to do it earlier.
No.
So, yeah, mugging at the camera is hard work. So yeah, a lot of cool things you can do. And like Lauren was saying, like we look forward to seeing what y'all come up with, and hopefully see some amazing things that are helpful, cool, or just fun. And with that, I think we'll call this a day. Check out slack.sanity.io. If you have any questions, we're all available in there. So yeah, thanks a lot for tuning in. Oops, there we go.